Larry O'Connor from WMAL in Washington, one of the great hosts, great writers. He's a great host. He does a great show, Larry O'Connor. He writes today in Town Hall, quote, "There's no circumstance under which I would vote for a Democrat over school closures and mask mandates," said Beth Ann Rocha earlier this week in a panel analyzing Democrat politicians' policies during COVID-19 and how those policies impacted children. Now, that's just the opening line of this article. And when you stop and think about that, how many Republicans are out there really hammering home the fact that there's people out there like Patty Murray in Washington who's still not convinced that we shouldn't be doing it again? Where are the Republicans railing against Biden and the bioweapon, Fauci and the bioweapon, and the school closures and the kids, and now the annual shots and the bodily autonomy and the military, everything that still is out there? Cut 15, G. Roll that.
A new assessment finds math and reading scores for 9-year-olds in the U.S. have dropped to record lows. The National Center for Education Statistics administered exams in early 2020 and then again in early 2022. The average test scores for reading fell by 5 points, while the average scores for math fell by 7 points. Now, the organization says this is the largest decline in reading since 1990 and the first ever decline in math.
Yeah. This is a winning issue for Republicans if they would take it, link it to all the other things that everybody went through for these lying weasels that have told us for the last 2 years. And as, again, back to Larry O'Connor, he says this is a great example of a key indication that suggests that after decades of near dominance as the party that Americans trust with education-related issues, the Democrat Party is now scrambling to separate themselves from the union thugs running the teachers union and the blue state governors who insisted on keeping your kids out of school or in suffocating masks in classrooms over the past 2 years. Even the always late to the party because they never hear anything outside of D.C. conventional wisdom Washington Post sees how Republicans have wrestled education away from Democrats as a winning issue. From the Post, for decades, voters overwhelmingly trusted Democrats to make education policy. But that changed during the COVID-19 pandemic as the party squandered an advantage that had been large as 20 points. Blue states and districts generally kept students in Zoom far longer than red states. Some education leaders glossed over the disaster this created for learning and equity and even shamed supporters who pointed out those impacts. This op-ed is quite right, he says, except that she insists on framing this issue as past tense. It's not. The instance on stagnating our children's development and education continues even today. It took Washington, D.C. suburb Prince George County, Maryland, until this very week to finally rescind its mask mandates in state-run schools. In Northern Virginia, schools actually tried to resist newly elected Governor Glenn Youngkin's executive order ending mask mandates by taking the governor to state court, using school district funds for legal expenses, naturally. Even the New York Times is figuring things out. They point out that although mask mandates seem to finally be a thing of unscientific, hysterical past, pre-K and daycare facilities in Democrat bastions that rely on federal Head Start funding still require face diapers for children younger than 5 years old. Parents who happen to live in a state not dominated by Biden's anti-science party are in the same pickle with regard to federal Head Start funding. But in most of those red states, the stance of the state government and their governor has been to flout those draconian guidelines and literally dare Biden and his Justice Department to do something about it. And voters are telling pollsters that their disenchantment with the Democrat Party and Democrats' handling of state-run education system goes well beyond their frustration over the COVID lockdowns. So this is a winning issue for Republicans out there. Whether it's CRT, whether it's lockdowns, It is a winning issue for Republicans for the first time, maybe in a long time, on a mass general scale across the country.